Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Today we started a new topic, but before that, some of you came to my office, and during my office hours, I understood that AWS might be a challenge for you guys. So if you want to follow my steps, uh, when you want to install a new instance, look at the top right. It said opt in the new experience and probably old experience. So there's just two different themes of Amazon AWS setup. So if you pick the old one, you see this page, multiple page that you set up one by one. If you opt in new experience, you see such a thing here. So it's basically both of them are very similar. But here, for example, first you should select Ubuntu and here microSD, then key pair, then instead of having multiple page for setup, you just have all of them in one page. They're basically exactly the same, but in the older, my PowerPoint, which was made 2 weeks ago, was based on the older theme. Which less than 1 week, I think they changed it. So here I'm opt out to the old experience, which I again to this page, which is very similar to my slides. So in case you want to follow exactly the same steps that I had, have this old theme. Otherwise, having a new theme, it shouldn't be very different. Second, I've noticed when you work with AWS, after setting up over the Amazon AWS website, maybe it's better to wait like 3 to 4 minutes or maybe 5 minutes. Then use PuTTY to log in and set up your Jupyter notebook and PySpark environment. Sometimes if you do quickly, it seems that the setup won't be that complete, so you might get some error, especially when you want to install Jupyter. It might say that there is no Jupyter folder. You have a question? Okay. So again, either this older theme or new one shouldn't be too different. But anyway, after you finish the setup over the Amazon AWS website, just wait maybe for 5 minutes, then use PuTTY to log in and install PySpark, Jupyter Notebook, and basically after that you will be able to do your assignment. On top of that, if you go over Moodle, on week 11, I put AWS setup codes, .txt. This is a new file. And also AWS troubleshooting.txt. So whatever I'm explaining you, I also put in the AWS troubleshooting. But for setup codes, if you click on it, you get access to the codes that I'm using after logging through PuTTY, and I use this code for installing Amazon EC2 instance, which has PySpark and a Jupyter Notebook. Sometimes, especially if you have multiple languages on your laptop, when you copy and paste from PowerPoint, maybe because of some font issue, you won't be able to replicate exactly the same results. Even I've seen space in different languages might have different character. When you see, you just see empty space, but when you copy and paste, they might just affect your result. So, but if you copy and paste from text document, plain text document, there won't be any font issue. So in case, maybe you can just copy and paste from this text file instead of your PowerPoint. What else? So let me just open the troubleshooting to see if I saw different things. Yeah, use these 3 steps in case if you still have issues. Please come see me during my office hours. Hopefully you won't. You can also follow the steps over YouTube video that I shared with you guys, but I don't expect you have any issue. But just in case, if you will have, please reach. Questions? For your assignment, you just need to make an instance and basically replicate one of the notebooks that we had. Any of them is fine. Okay, for today's session, we still work with the Databricks, and I'm going to show you how to do market basket analysis or association rule mining through PySpark. So before further, please go over Moodle, download all the files, including the PowerPoint, and also please make a Databricks cluster and upload the CSV file that you see here over Databricks. So within 5 minutes, you should be able to run a cluster, and also you should be able to upload that CSV file into your Databricks profile. I give you a few minutes to just, maybe 5 minutes to download the files and also upload, running your cluster and also uploading the CSV file. So in case you have forgotten how to upload a CSV file, so over your Databricks, go to Data, Create Table, and just drag and drop your CSV file. If you forget how to import it, Jupyter Notebook, go to Workspace, then click your user, and then import your Jupyter Notebook here, which you can drag and drop. Also for making a cluster, so for being able to run a Jupyter Notebook, you need to run a cluster. Go to Compute, here click Create Cluster, and press OK, and then you will be able to have a running cluster that basically takes care of your computations. So you work with the compute for making cluster, data for, and create table for uploading your CSV file, and workspace, user, and import for importing Jupyter Notebook. Then your Jupyter Notebook would be under your username email, which you can just click and open your Jupyter Notebook. So does anyone remember what was market basket analyzer association rule binding? So, or why we use that? Looking at this slide, so it's for your previous course. It was business intelligence and visualizations. So no one remembers? Oh yeah. Yeah. What is it about?
So it's like the things which you study together, like arranging things in such a way, either in retail stores somewhere. It's like placing diapers in weekends.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And do you remember why diapers could be next to beer cans in a supermarket?
So like according to a priori algorithm, okay, so I didn't do market analysis for that, but I did for McDonald's. So the combo thing. So I know how the combo thing works. So we actually take few set of orders and we see whether those people who bought these orders, like what they got along with that, and we do like a custom mapping. And based on that, we give the market basket analysis output, and we push that order into the market and see whether it's performing well or not. If not, we keep on thinking.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. You're talking about the methodology.
Yeah.
So for some items, maybe we cannot find why they might go together or why people buy them together. But sometimes you can have a good guess. So for the diaper and beer, you might remember we found an interesting story. Do you guys remember the story? Yeah, what was that?
Some researchers found it very interesting that when it comes to male children in the supermarket, they will buy both diapers and beers because men were forced by their wife to buy the diaper for their children, and it's work for them. So they also want to shop some video for themselves.
Okay. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Very correct. So sometimes the association makes a lot of sense, even easier. For example, if you go Walmart or any supermarket, you might see that they put coffees next to tea or next to coffee filter because very intuitively, someone who buys coffee, there's a higher chance if they buy coffee filter. So you try to find association rule for selling the most. Let's say somebody comes to Walmart and if they buy coffee, but they forget to buy coffee filter. So they might leave your supermarket, but if they figure out they haven't bought it, maybe they buy from Whole Foods or from Amazon. So you want to maximize your sale by putting the items that might go together in an order. So when customers come to your supermarket, they buy everything that they need from you. So basically, incentive is just maximizing your sale. Over Amazon, if you want, let's say if you buy a laptop, usually they suggest other things, but they expect, okay, somebody who might buy a laptop, they might buy a mouse or antivirus or something else. So they want to just maximize their sales. So even for a supermarket, finding the items that might be seated together is very challenging. There's thousands of items in Amazon, millions of items. So it's not feasible to just guess which items could go together. Instead of that, people use association rule mining or market basket analysis. So they can find which items could go together. And in case if there is a significant association rule, they just put those items together. In Amazon, it's easier because they just put their link together. So it's much easier than Walmart. But at the same time, Amazon or any online store has the millions of items. So running association rule over millions of items is almost impossible with the even a powerful PC. So what they do, they use PySpark. So they have millions of orders. They run association rule mining through those orders. And in case you might remember, we had the lift. If the lift is significant, whenever you buy one of them, they put those links and pictures together. So then you might buy extra things that first satisfy your need or passion or whatever, and it maximizes their profit at the same time. Okay, so last semester, so we had this problem with a very small data set. This semester, we are working with a larger data set, not too much large because still we are using free flavor of Hadoop and Spark. So we cannot just use millions of items, but still we have a large data set. We just run association rule mining through that data set and find the IDs of items that might work together, that might be seated together in a basket. Okay, so let me open the CSV file that has all the transactions. So this is a very concise one. We have sales date, sales value, sales amount, customer ID, transaction ID, and sales item. So the total number of orders is 341,423. So still too much. You cannot do it in 9, definitely. Or even if you do it through 9, it might take forever. Here, we are going to just use PySpark to be able to handle this large data set. Besides, KNIME and Excel has a limitation cap on the number of rows. You cannot just have multi-million rows, and it's out of their power. Before going to the calculation, let's just quickly review association rule mining that we had last semester, just as a recap, then we go to the codes. Anyway, questions so far? Besides business, also in medication might be very important. Some diseases might happen together. So whenever somebody is sick, so by looking at the sickness, maybe doctors can understand what other sickness might happen at the same time. So when they want to prescribe a certain medicine, they should consider so many side effects, because there is hundreds of illness or different sickness that may happen to a patient. So maybe handling all of them in by their parent power is not that much easy. So they can use association rule mining. They can find sicknesses that could happen together and their common side effects. So this is also important that in that field too. So let me read the jargon. So for association rule, we are looking for an items that implies the other item. So for example, A could be coffee, B could be coffee filter. So coffee implies coffee filter. So the first part is antecedent. The following part is consequent. We also probability of A union B, which is two different items. We call it support. Confidence of probability of B given A is equal confidence of A implies B, or support divided by probability of A. Lift is confidence divided by probability of B, or support divided by probability of A times B, or probability of A union B divided by probability of A times. So in association rule mining, if lift more than one, it means there's a significant association between two items. So we rather to just put these two items together to maximize our sales. Or in case of healthcare domain, if the lift between two sicknesses more than one, you can consider that these two sicknesses could happen together. So you may have some consideration when you want to prescribe a certain medicine. Okay, so let's look at this example. So we have 6 transactions. So in each transaction, we have an item ID. So for example, first one, 101, 2, 3, 4 has items 1, 2, 3, 4. And the last one, which is 112, 39, just has item 2 and 4. Support of 1, 2, 3, 4 means the probability of that item happens. So 3 out of 6 item has item of 1. So support for item 1 is 3 divided by 6. For item 4, as you see in transaction first, second, fourth, fifth, and sixth, you have item 4. So support for item 4 is 5 divided by 6. You can have support for two items together, for example, 1 and 2. So 1 and 2 happen here, here, and here. So 3 out of 6 transactions has item 1 and 2 together. So their support will be 3 divided by 6. Let's look at item 2 and 4. So 2 and 4 happens in the first, second, and fifth. So let's say 3 divided by 6. 2 and 4 happens a lot. Almost in 5 out of 6 transactions, you have that 2 items together, and you have for 3 items. So 1, 2, 4 is happening here, here, and here. So the support is 3 divided by 6. So just as an example, confidence of A implies B is equal probability of 1 and 2, which is in 3 out of 6, divided by probability of 1, which is still in 2 transactions. So confidence of 1 implies 2 is 3 divided by 6 divided by 3 divided by 6. Or here, confidence of 1 and 2 implies 4, means probability of these three together, 3 out of 6, divided by probability of 1 and 2 together, so first, fourth, and fifth, so 100%. Let's have an example for finding lift. So lift x implies y is equal support of x union y divided by support of x times support of y. So lift of 1 implies 0, means support of union a and 1, a and 0. So a or 0 union is either, it means probability of 1 or 0. So sorry, a or 0. So a or 0 happen in the first, second, third, fourth, not in the fifth, and not in the seventh. So 5 out of 7. I think you can easily find probability of A, which is 4 divided by 7, and 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, except 4 divided by 7. So if you calculate lift of 1 implies 0 is 2.1875. It's more than 1, so there's a significant rule association or association between items 1A and items with the ID of 0. Questions so far? So if there is no question, so please go to your Databricks and open market basket analysis. So in this notebook, we are going to find significant associations between the items that we have. So instead of having like egg, juice, like bread, we have their codes. So again, if you open your sales CSV file, so basically, whatever we want to work, we just want to work with the column E and F. These are the most important one, because you are looking for sales item, which is the last item, that are happened within each sales. So let's say if in one sale, item 0 and 1, sorry, if in your sales, item 0 and 1 happen a lot together, it just means there's a significant association rule. Again, if you look at the table, some of the transaction is repeated in 2 different rows. It's because in one transaction, you might have 12 one item. For example, item 0 and transaction 0 happen twice. So also look at transaction 1. It has items 0, 1, 2. So since it has 3 different items for one transaction, at least, so you have 3 different rows. If I go back to the first transaction, so transaction 0, for one transaction, which is 0, 2 of them is 2 item 0. So there's item 0 and transaction 0. So 2 different ID codes. Maybe it could be typo anyway, but for us, if you have multiple of one item, doesn't make sense. So we don't look at the frequency. We just look at the existence of one item in one order. So what does it mean? If later, if I see such a thing, I just consider one of them. Again, let's look at item transaction 15. So it has item 7, 8, 9. So for each of them, we have a separate row. So again, for association rule mining, based on the formulas we just reviewed, we are looking at the last two columns, which is this transaction ID and also sales ID or sales item. So here sales item, it's basically just sales ID. Or item ID, something like that. Again, similar to previous Jupyter Notebook, we import Spark session and also make an app. Again, this is a good practice. You don't have to, but in the real industrial Spark environment, you might submit several jobs to your server. So each job has an ID number, which here my project is the ID number of this job. But here, since we are working with a free instance of Spark, it doesn't matter if you have this block or not, because then you just have one application. So it's not necessary for here, but it's a good practice. In the next block of code, I'm just importing the sales CSV file. This is the default location of CSV files when you drag and drop into Databricks. I'm saying that infer schema, I'm saying that it's the data type, and it has a header column, so header row. So the first row is the header. I'm printing the schema. I want to see what was the guess of PySpark, and also I want to look at the first 5 rows of my data. With data.show, I'm looking at the first 5 rows. So looking at the schema that Spark guessed for me, do you think it could be an issue here? So as you see, says this date is a timestamp. This could be good. Sales value is double. It's okay. Sales amount is integer. Still looks good. Transaction ID and sales item. Both of them are IDs, not integer value. So actually here, the guess of PySpark, it makes sense that it guesses as integer, but it might cause problems later because so like transaction item ID of 2 doesn't mean 2 times more than item ID 1. Maybe item ID 1 could be this screen. Item ID 2 could be this laptop. So laptop is not 2 times 1. So, but here, although this is a wrong guess, but it still works in my Jupyter notebook. But just keep in mind, this wrong schema could cause some problems when you do other machine learning jobs. So for your final project, just take care of this part. Be sure that a wrong schema won't fail your project. And if you look at the previous notebooks, I also taught you how to change the schema. So if there's something is ID, maybe you should convert it to a string. Questions so far? Okay, in the next block of code, I'm importing some default function from Spark SQL and also from PySpark machine learning package. I am importing FP growth. FP growth is for association rule mining. I was importing pandas, just showing you. I assume for some of your project, maybe you need to convert your data set to pandas. Just keep in mind, in many of your Jupyter notebook, I taught you so many commands for PySpark SQL. But you might already have a Python class before. So in those Python classes, you learn how to work with the pandas data frame. So in case you still want to use previous knowledge, you need to convert your data to pandas. For my class, I taught you so many PySpark SQL, you don't have to convert to pandas. But just keep in mind, in case some of your comments didn't work, hopefully you will be, it worked and you finalize your project because we are reaching to due date. In case you got so many errors, it's most likely you are making like a confusion between the previous codes that you learn and are applicable for pandas data frame, not PySpark SQL data frame. So if we bought more than one quantity of an item, we just consider that item code. Again, might be even typos. So we are looking at a unique item in unique order. So if you have multiple rows of one item in one transaction, it might be just typo. For example, if I go back here, transaction 0, item 0, transaction 0, item 0. So one of them is just needed for me. So here I'm just saying that drop duplicates of in these two. So this consider these two together, and whenever you see duplicate, just get rid of it. And then I'm sorting based on sales transaction column. Now I'm showing you the first 5 rows. As you see, at least here you don't see those replications. So item transaction 0, just have item 0, just one row. Then again, I want to group and aggregate based on my sales. So I want to see which items in one sale in one row. Here, for example, sales of 1, you have the row for 0 item, for item not with ID of 1, the item with the ID of 2. So I just want to have all of them together. So I should group by based on transaction ID. It happens here actually. I'm just saying that group by transaction ID and looking at sales item. And when you do group by, just collect the values in one row. So collect the value of items in one row, and then I still am sorted with transaction ID. So look at here, transaction ID 1 as item 0 to 1. Look at here, transaction ID 1, item 0, item 1, item 2. So instead of multiple rows, now I just have one row. In case you face some question, you can just ask me. You don't have to wait for the time that I give you. So you can just interrupt me and raise your question. So I told you that FP growth is for finding association rule. So FP growth, I'm saying that the item column is collect list sales item. So this is basically this item. So just saying that consider this item, sorry, this column of collect list sales item in parentheses, and just don't just report everything. Have a minimum for support and confidence, which is 0.006. Then I apply on my data, which is basket data. So basket data was the data that I grouped by sales transaction. So when you fit that association rule mining over your data, you can get several reports. One of them, the frequency. So as you see, for example, this is the frequency of items. For example, item with the ID of 315 happened 553 times. The most frequent in here is item 137 with the 730 repetition. But still, you can use dot sort and you can sort them out. So here I just put randomly. Also take care of two items happen together and also the frequency of them. So with association rule method over my model, which I developed earlier, I can find the association rule. And again, with dot show method, you can see the result. So if you look at the result, here all of the association rules are significant because the leaf column, all of them is more than 1. The first one is 48. So you also can sort them out and basically make it more complex. Here is the very basic report. So maybe you can get rid of the association rules or the leaf rule that are less than 1. So you don't have to report everything. So it's not, so you basically can play on top of it and just make some filters, and basically you don't have to report everything. On top of that, in this package, it gives you an ability to predict items that could work together. So with that previous model, I train an association rule model over my data. Then I'm applying to our current data set, which is basket.data. And I want to predict items that could work together. For example, some of them it couldn't predict, but for example, for transaction ID 15, there is 3 items, but using that association rule model, it also predicts the items that potentially could happen together. What it gives you, it says, okay, this transaction, somebody just bought 3 items, but it could buy much more than that. Because we look at the history of transactions, we train association rule mining model, and it just means, for example, for sales transaction ID of 15, you did a very bad job currently because you missed a lot of opportunities. So somebody who bought this 3 item might buy much more than this. So it gives you somehow like a performance measure. I might give you an assignment, so asking you just predict your performance. Tell me your performance. So maybe you need to make a loop over each row, and looking at the differences of items that the customer bought and the prediction. So you might, it's not, maybe intuitively it has some logical problem, but at least you can, it gives you a rough idea about what you did. So one part of your data set could be tested, and you say, based on the current association rule, there might be some differences from what actually they bought and what they could buy. It not only gives you an idea how to redesign your online store or supermarket physical store, it also gives you a rough idea about what happened and what could happen based on the model that you trained. Questions so far? Okay, so one of the things I will want from you guys after doing prediction or like accuracy, whatever performance, you also should be able to report your results. The easiest one I mean, there's much more other ways. For example, if you want to have a local instance of PySpark and Hadoop, you can export from PySpark to Hadoop and then from Hadoop to your local system. If you are doing one individual project, your life is much easier. So here I teach you how to download from Databricks. So looking at display, so there's a command of display. So this is like transformed. If you look at transform, it's basically my predictions table. With display function, you see a neat table. At the bottom, there is a download button. Just click on here, and you can download your files, your results. So this is enough for the individual project. If you want to, in the basically a group project, which on top of Databricks, you might have another platform, you can just easily go. It's not too difficult, but you need to learn how to export your results, because then you should be able to report. Databricks or other private companies that offer a flavor of Spark and Hadoop, they might have such options that makes your life easier. But for your group project, you still need to how to export from Spark to Hadoop, and from Hadoop you can. I already taught you how to download from Hadoop to your local system. If you look at one of our earliest sessions, I taught you how to export from your local system to Hadoop and how to download from Hadoop to your local system. In the group project, because it's more than one, you should learn by yourself how to export from Spark to Hadoop. And after that, you can look at one of our lectures, how to download from Hadoop to your local system. Because the goal is, it shouldn't be a standalone by itself. Sometimes you have to report your results somewhere. Also, I told you that if you want to leverage your previous Python knowledge to here, you need to convert your tables into pandas format, so you will be leveraged. The command is very easy. So look, rules is a PySpark SQL. I'm just saying that select everything. So we select a star, it just selects everything. And to pandas, it converts it to the panda data frame. Now, since it's converted, I can use dot head, and I see the top 5 rows in my data frame. Let me just go back. Okay, before I go back, do you remember what was the method for seeing the first top 5 rows in PySpark? What I used before? So if you just scroll up, let's show. Here, so the data frame is in SQL type format. So with .show, I can see the header. Here, my table in the pandas format. So with .head, I can see that. Again, this method to pandas is very handy, because if you convert to pandas, you can just use whatever you have learned before, and makes your life much easier, because you can easily leverage Python with PySpark. Similarly, with display method, I can, in Databricks, I can see my tables, and with the button, download button, I can download the results here. So let me just open the Excel file. It has all the association rules. Or the one that it could predict. Maybe there could be some association rule that it couldn't converge, but you can see the items and which items have a significant relationship with each other. So I think takeaway for today, for all of you at least, how to convert pandas and how to download your report. For also how to do market basket analysis in PySpark environments. Again, for people who are doing a group project, please just Google. It's not difficult. How to export your results, or let's say just Google how to export a CSV from PySpark to Hadoop. Questions? Yes.
What kind of deliverable should we have doing?
Just presentation is enough. So if you similar to last semester, you can present next week. If you present next week, I can give you some comment feedback. So based on my feedback, you can improve, but you don't have to present. So just a presentation file is enough. But generally speaking, I'm not talking about you. I'm just talking about the whole of the class. You should improve your presentation quality much more. That is almost your last semester. And frankly speaking, the first presentation that I gave you feedback didn't have good quality. So we are looking about how you can your skills in presenting a topic. But for presentation, maybe just a summary of the domain. What was the data set? Maybe you show some visualizations. You talk about your hypothesis and maybe the results. That should be enough.
Show this whole book.
I rather I think if you do PowerPoint, it's much easier for you to present.
Yeah, like then should we like screenshot of this? Right?
Yeah, definitely you can take a screenshots. Yeah. By the way, I just repeat, whenever you make an instance over AWS, don't forget to terminate your instance. Every semester, there is some students who get charged like $500, $1,000. And because they just left an instance running, although it said free, I'm not sure, they might find some way to charge you, but every semester that it happened, the students reached Amazon and said it was for a class project. And in all the cases, I saw that they forgave. So nobody paid for that. But please don't put a headache for yourself. They have your credit card information. So after running your instance, just come here and from instance, click instance state, click terminate. Just be a safe side. But again, this is a private for-profit company. So and sometimes they say we have free service, but they might find a way to charge you. Just, I mean, if I was in your shoes, I'd rather terminate.
Because if you terminate, we should do all things again.
Yes. So maybe you do it like maybe for a couple of days should be fine, but don't leave it for 2 weeks or maybe 10 days or more than that. So just install your instance, run your assignment, and that's it. Maybe for your project, maybe you need more time for your final project if you want to do Amazon and AWS. But again, every semester I see that they forgive a student. I never saw a student pay for the service. Even when I was a student, they charged me like $400 something, but I said it was for my class project, I have to do that, and they forgave. So even it happened for me too. Other questions or things? Okay, so as you might remember, I said the first class, this class is for learning some skills related to big data and some practical skills, not just talking general things about analytics. So still, I know it was a very difficult semester, but the goal was not to make your life difficult for you guys, to have some tool set that you add on your resume. So being able to machine learning in Amazon AWS is a really complicated one. If you want to take online courses, it might take like at least 1 week, but you learn 1 hour or even less. So you work, you know what does MapReduce means. You did local instance and so many other things. But again, these are for having a better skill set and no worries about your finals. I look at how you do machine learning projects. So PySpark was the main one, but still, if you convert to pandas, you can just leverage your previous knowledge and make your life easier. Anyway, that was for today. Next class, we also keep talking about some other applications of Hadoop and Spark or Hadoop ecosystem in general. And next week is your presentation week. I encourage you, even if you are not that much finished, still if you present, let's say 70% of your project, you give a feedback on 70% of your project. It's better than waiting up to the last day of the semester. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you very much and have a great evening.